my name is Case and welcome to another Right Brain tutorial. I'm going to try to keep this one short and sweet. So if you're using Houdini and Redshift for Houdini and you're experiencing frequent crashes, let me go over a couple of things that I found could be part of the problem. So the first thing is if you click on the Redshift menu button, or if you navigate, if you have like a shelf set up for Redshift, you click on the About button, you will see that this window pops up and it displays two pieces of information. One is the plugin version, which in this case is 2.6.20, and the second one is the build for Houdini. Okay, and in this particular case, it's saying that the build for Houdini that I'm using is 16.5.536. Now, this might appear right, but it actually isn't, because in this particular case, if I go under Houdini and say About Houdini 16.5, you will see that the version of Houdini that I'm actually using at the moment is 16.5.571. Okay, it's not 0.536. So this is a different version than what I'm actually using here. So how do I correct this? Pretty easily, actually. Let me quit out of Houdini, and we're going to navigate to our houdini.env file. And if you've seen my previous tutorial on how to install Redshift for Houdini, you'll know that if we hold down the Option key and click on the Go menu on a Mac, and then navigate to our library, this is our user library, and then just kind of scroll down to your Preferences folder, scroll all the way down until you see Houdini 16.5, and right here we have the houdini.env file. So this is what we need to change. And if I right click and I can say Open with Text Wrangler is what I recommend, but you can use TextEdit or whatever else you might use. So in here you'll see that we have these two lines of code that, once again, if you've seen my previous tutorial on how to install Redshift, you'll recognize. The second line of code is what interests us, and this is where the version of the build for whatever version of Houdini is being indicated. Okay, if I click out of here and just go into my Applications folder under Redshift, you'll see that my Redshift for Houdini has got like different choices for different versions of Houdini. And in this particular case, for 16.5, I have a build for 16.5.496, 16.5.536, and 16.5.571. So in this particular case, 0.571 is what matches my current installation of Houdini. So that's what we want to change in the env document. So basically just kind of change this to 571. That's what it matches. Everything else should be the same. Hit save and save anyway, I guess, and quit out of Text Wrangler. And now let's reopen Houdini and see if the versions match. So once again, click on Redshift, About Redshift. Okay, so now I have the Houdini same version number, but this time the build for Houdini is 16.5.571, which matches my version of Houdini that I'm using, 16.5.571. So as long as these two numbers match, you're golden. So definitely keep an eye out on that. So the second thing that I found that might be a problem that might lead to some crashes in Redshift is actually the cache folder. So if you click on Redshift, and once again, you can access all of these shelf options, you can access from like the drop-down menu as well. But if I go under Options right here, Redshift defaults their cache location to basically this cache folder on my system drive. And if I click out of, let me cancel this and like click out of Houdini, I'll show you where that is. In my particular case, it's under my users folder under K's, and there's like this Redshift folder. And this cache folder is basically where Redshift is going to store all of the texture caches, all of the other, elements that it needs to cache. And what I found is that having a cache on the system drive is not always the best option. So what I have set up instead is I have like an SSD drive that I'm using exclusively as a cache drive. If you have space in your computer and you can kind of actually use an SSD drive, that's great because it's fast and it allows Redshift to write files to the drive very, very quickly and retrieve them as it needs it. So how do you change this? Well, like first of all, let me put this away and let me go back into Houdini. So what I need is a path. I need to like kind of basically change this information right here to my other drive. And the quickest way on a Mac to find a path is simply to open up your terminal and drag wherever you want Redshift to put its cache files in. This particular case on my Xcache hard drive in the folder that I called quite simply cache. I just drag and drop this into my terminal and then it gives me the path. So I just kind of highlight this, copy it, and now let's go back to Redshift, options, and highlight this and Command V for paste, and off we go, and click OK. And we should be good to go. And just to be on the safe side, I quit out of Houdini and restart just to make sure that the changes have taken effect. So now restarting Houdini, go under Redshift, under options. Where are we? Right here, plugin options. And here we go. So now all of my Redshift cache files are going to be stored on my SSD drive instead of my system folder. So that is, as I said, another way that I found to make Redshift a lot more stable. Now there's one third thing that you want to check, and that has to do with OS X has a lot of permissions that you need to kind of configure and make sure that the application is able to write files to a particular volume. So on your drive or even on your folder, you just want to like kind of hit Command I and get like information about that particular folder. And see, it says like I can read and write to this folder, but everybody else can read only. And even though technically I'm using Houdini and Redshift as the root user, sometimes this is I don't know why, but like sometimes I found that different applications tend to report permission problems and they can't write a file. So in this particular case, let me see here, just type in my password and just change this to read and write for those other users as well, and close that. Alternatively, what you can also do is if you have a dedicated hard drive for it, you can hit Command I on the actual drive and just kind of like you unlock this guy and just click on this button that says ignore ownership on this volume, and in this particular case it will just disregard any sort of other settings inside this volume. So those are the 3 tips that I have for you, and I found crashes to be actually a lot less, if non-existent, in Redshift. Houdini is a different story, but Redshift has been a lot more stable since I've made these 3 changes. I hope this helps you, and see you next time.